The rain had been falling since evening, and the streets outside were nearly empty. Inside a small house at the end of the road, a man named Daniel was trying to get his daughter to finish her dinner. The house was quiet except for the sound of raindrops hitting the windows and the cartoon playing softly in the background. It was a normal night, nothing unusual, until a sudden knock came at the door. Daniel looked at the clock. It was past 9. He frowned and stood up. It was rare for anyone to visit that late, especially on a stormy night. He walked to the door, hesitated for a moment, and then opened it. Standing there was a teenage girl, maybe around 15 or 16. Her clothes were soaked through. Her hair clung to her face, and her hands trembled as she held a small backpack close to her chest. She looked scared and lost. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean to bother you. I got lost trying to find my aunt's house. My phone's dead, and I don't know where else to go." Daniel's first thought was to ask her where she came from, but looking at her shivering in the rain, he just couldn't turn her away. He stepped aside and said gently, "Come in before you catch a cold." The girl nodded, stepped inside, and wiped her shoes on the mat. She looked unsure, almost as if she expected him to change his mind and tell her to leave. Daniel's daughter, Lily, peeked from behind the living room door. She was 8, small and curious, with wide eyes that studied the stranger closely. "Who's that, Dad?" she asked in a whisper. Daniel smiled at her. "Just someone who got lost. She'll stay until we figure out where she needs to go." The girl smiled faintly at Lily, though it was clear she was nervous. Daniel gave her a towel and motioned toward the heater. "You can dry off there. I'll make you some tea." As she sat near the heater, the warmth slowly returned to her face. The girl looked around the cozy living room. Photos on the wall, a small shelf of children's books, and a drawing of a smiling family taped to the fridge. For a moment, something in her expression softened, almost as if it reminded her of something she'd lost. Daniel returned with a mug of tea. "Here you go," he said. "What's your name?" "Maya," she replied, her voice still quiet. "All right, Maya, where does your aunt live? Maybe I can help you find her." She looked down at her hands, fidgeting. I'm not sure. I thought it was on this street, but now I think I got it wrong." Daniel nodded slowly. He could tell she wasn't saying everything, but he didn't push. It was late, and she looked exhausted. "You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow morning we'll figure it out, okay?" Her eyes widened. "Are you sure? I don't want to cause trouble." "It's no trouble," he said firmly. "No one should be out in this weather." Lily ran up with one of her extra blankets. "She can use this." "It's my favorite, but I don't mind sharing." Maya gave her a small smile and whispered, "Thank you." That night, after Daniel showed her to the guest room, he stood in the hallway for a while thinking. It wasn't like him to let a stranger in, but something about her, the lost look in her eyes, the way she clutched her bag, made him feel she needed help. When he finally went to bed, the sound of rain still filled the house. Lily had fallen asleep quickly, but Daniel couldn't. He kept wondering who Maya really was. Something about her story didn't fit. No address, no phone, and no attempt to call anyone. He decided not to press her until morning. In the guest room, Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon and old wood. It felt safe. Safer than anywhere she had been in a long time. But at the same time, her chest felt tight. She whispered to herself, "I didn't mean for it to be like this." Down the hall, Daniel turned in bed and glanced at the framed photo on his nightstand. A picture of him, Lily, and his late wife. He reached out and touched it softly before turning off the lamp. The house grew quiet again. The storm passed overnight. In the morning, Daniel woke to the smell of something burning. He hurried to the kitchen to find Lily standing on a stool, trying to make toast while Maya stood beside her laughing softly. The toast was black, but the moment was warm. "I think you're both going to burn down the kitchen," Daniel joked. Maya laughed awkwardly. "Sorry, I was trying to help her make breakfast," he smiled. "No harm done." He poured coffee for himself and sat at the table. For a few minutes, they ate together in silence. Lily kept chatting about school and cartoons, completely unaware of the tension between the two adults. When breakfast ended, Daniel asked gently, "Maya, do you remember anything about where your aunt lives?" "Maybe a street name." She hesitated, then shook her head. "I think I mixed it up. I don't know how I got it wrong." "I'm really sorry." Daniel studied her for a moment. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the cup. She wasn't lying, at least not completely. but she was definitely hiding something. He thought for a moment before saying, "It's fine. We'll check online or maybe call someone later." Maya nodded. "Thank you for letting me stay." "I know you didn't have to," he shrugged. "It's what anyone would do." But deep down, he knew not everyone would. The morning sun peeked through the curtains, filling the small kitchen with soft light. Maya looked around again at the family photos on the wall. Her eyes stopped at one picture, Daniel's wedding photo. She stared at it quietly, her lips parting as if she recognized something. Daniel noticed her expression. "Something wrong?" he asked. She blinked quickly and forced a smile. "No, it's just..." She looked kind. He nodded slowly. She was. Maya turned away, pretending to sip her tea. Inside, her thoughts raced. She had seen that face before, not in person but in an old picture hidden among her grandmother's things. She hadn't expected to find this house not so soon, and definitely not to meet the man from that photo. Daniel got up and started clearing the table, unaware of her thoughts. "You can stay here until we figure things out," he said again. "No rush. Thank you," she said softly. That afternoon, Lily dragged Maya to her room to show her drawings and toys. The sound of laughter filled the house, and for a moment Daniel smiled to himself. It had been a long time since the house sounded that lively. When the girls went outside to play in the small backyard, Daniel stepped onto the porch with a cup of coffee. The air smelled fresh after the storm. He watched them, Lily laughing as she ran around, and Maya smiling in a way that seemed both happy and sad at once. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but something about her felt strangely familiar, like a piece of his life that had gone missing long ago. Later that evening, while bringing in the laundry, Daniel noticed Maya standing near the small wooden shed at the corner of the yard. She was staring at it intently, almost as if she'd seen it before. "That's just an old storage shed," Daniel said, walking closer, "mostly full of things that belong to my wife. Haven't touched it in years." Maya turned quickly, her eyes wide. "Oh, I was just looking." It looked familiar. Daniel frowned slightly. "Familiar?" She shrugged, forcing a small laugh. "Maybe I'm imagining it." He nodded, but the moment stayed with him. There was something strange in her voice, a quiet recognition she couldn't hide. That night, after dinner, Daniel tucked Lily into bed and went to check on Maya. She was sitting on the guest bed, staring at her backpack. When he asked if she needed anything, she shook her head. "Good night," he said. "Good night," she whispered. When he walked away, she slowly unzipped her bag and pulled out an old, folded photograph. It was faded, but the image was clear. The same woman from the photo in Daniel's living room, standing in front of that same house years ago. Maya ran her thumb over the woman's face. "Mom," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. She hadn't planned to stay the night. She hadn't planned to meet him, not like this. But now that she was here, she wasn't sure she could leave. In his room, Daniel lay awake again, uneasy. Something told him the girl under his roof wasn't just a lost stranger. There was something deeper, something connected to his past. He just didn't know what it was yet. The rain had stopped, but the questions in his mind had just begun. The next morning, the house felt quieter than usual. The rain had stopped, leaving the ground damp and the air cool. Daniel was up early making breakfast while his daughter, Lily, still slept. He could hear soft movements from the guest room. Maya was awake. He poured 2 cups of tea and placed one on the table for her. When she walked in, she looked better than the night before, rested, though still carrying that quiet sadness in her eyes. "Morning," Daniel said kindly. "Good morning," she replied, her voice gentle. He motioned for her to sit down. "I hope you slept all right." "I did," she said. "Thank you for letting me stay." Daniel smiled slightly. "You don't have to thank me. It was just one night." He paused, then added, "But now that it's morning, we should figure out how to get you home." Maya froze for a second, her fingers gripping the cup. "Right," she said quickly. I don't remember the street name. I thought it was near the park, but now I think I got the wrong area." Daniel nodded slowly. "Do you have your aunt's number?" "I can call her for you." She shook her head. "No. My phone was in my bag and it stopped working after the rain. I didn't write her number down." That didn't sound right, but Daniel didn't want to press too hard. Something about her tone told him that pushing might only make her shut down more. Just then Lily walked into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes and yawning. "Morning," she said sleepily. "Is there breakfast?" Daniel chuckled. "You're just in time." Lily grinned at Maya and sat next to her. "I'm glad you didn't leave," she said innocently. Maya smiled softly. "Me too." They ate together, and for a short while it felt like they were just a normal family. Laughter, toast, and warm sunlight streaming through the window. But beneath the calm, Daniel's mind was full of questions. After breakfast, he offered to drive Maya around the area to see if she recognized any houses or streets. She agreed, though her face showed hesitation. As they drove through the small town, she looked out the window silently, her eyes scanning the roads. Occasionally, she'd ask him to slow down near certain streets, but then she'd shake her head. "No, it's not here." An hour passed and still nothing. Daniel glanced at her and said gently, "Are you sure your aunt lives in this town?" She nodded, though her voice was quiet. "Yes, I'm sure." "All right," he said softly. "We'll try again later. Maybe she'll try to reach you once your phone dries out." They returned home and Daniel could see she was embarrassed. "Don't worry," he said kindly. "You're safe here. We'll figure it out." She gave him a small, grateful smile. "Thank you. I promise I won't be in your way." "You're not," he said. As the day went on, Maya spent most of her time with Lily. The two of them played board games, drew pictures, and even baked cookies together. Daniel watched them from the living room, quietly surprised at how quickly they bonded. Lily was shy around most people, but with Maya it was different. She trusted her instantly. Later that afternoon, Daniel found Maya in the backyard again. She stood near the garden shed, the same place she had been the day before. Her hand rested on the old wooden door and she looked lost in thought. "Maya," he called softly. "You all right?" She turned quickly, startled. "Oh yes, sorry, I was just looking." He walked over and stood beside her. "You really seem interested in this shed," he said, trying to sound casual. She looked down, her voice quiet. "It just looks familiar. I don't know why." Daniel frowned slightly. "Familiar how?" "I don't know," she said after a pause. "It's like I've seen it before, but I can't remember where." He nodded slowly. "Maybe you've been in this neighborhood before." "Maybe," she whispered. They stood there for a moment in silence, listening to the wind move through the trees. Then Daniel smiled and said, "Come on. Lily's probably waiting to show you something new again." That evening after dinner, they sat together watching an old movie. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch halfway through, her head resting on Maya's shoulder. Daniel noticed how gently Maya held her, as if she was protecting something precious. When the movie ended, Maya carefully tucked a blanket over Lily and turned off the TV. Daniel looked at her and said, "You're good with her." Maya smiled faintly. "She reminds me of someone I used to know." Daniel tilted his head. "Someone from your family?" She hesitated. "Something like that." Then, before he could ask more, she said quickly, "I should probably go to bed." "Thank you again for everything." He nodded, letting her go. "Good night, Maya." "Good night," she replied. After she left the room, Daniel sat there for a long time, thinking. There were too many unanswered questions. Who was this girl, really? Why did she show up here of all places? And why did she seem to recognize things around his home? He decided he would call the local police station in the morning. Not to report her, but just to check if anyone had reported a missing teen matching her description. Maybe that would give him a clue. That night, the house was silent again, but Daniel couldn't sleep. He got up, poured himself a glass of water, and walked to the living room. The moonlight fell softly across the framed photos on the shelf. He picked up one, a picture of his late wife standing in the garden, smiling. He missed her more than words could describe. It had been years since she passed, but sometimes it still felt like yesterday. He sighed, set the photo down, and went back to bed. In her room, Maya sat awake with the light off. She was holding an old piece of paper, a photograph that had started to fade at the corners. It was of a young woman standing in front of the same house she was in now. That woman was the same one from the pictures on Daniel's wall. Her heart ached. She whispered to herself, "I didn't mean to come like this. I just wanted to see where she lived." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she wiped them quickly. She didn't want to wake anyone. She had already caused enough confusion. The next morning, Daniel was making coffee when Maya walked in, her eyes slightly red. Didn't sleep much? He asked gently. She smiled weakly. A little. I was just thinking, he nodded. I called the police station earlier, just to see if anyone's reported you missing. Her face went pale. You called the police? He raised a hand quickly. Hey, don't worry. I didn't tell them anything personal. I just described your age and what you said about getting lost. They said there's no report matching you. She looked down, fidgeting with her sleeve. Oh, okay. Daniel could see the panic in her eyes, but he didn't know why she was so afraid. You don't have to be scared, he said gently. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I just want to make sure you're okay. She looked up at him then, really looked. You don't have to do this for me, she said softly. You already helped me enough. He shook his head. Maybe, but I don't feel right letting a kid wander around not knowing where she belongs. That simple sentence made her eyes water again. She turned away quickly, pretending to sip her tea. Later that day, while Daniel went out to pick up groceries, Maya and Lily spent time in the living room drawing. Lily drew a picture of the three of them, her dad, and Maya, standing together under a big tree. When she showed it, Maya's smile trembled. Can I keep this? Maya asked softly. Of course, Lily said. You're part of us now. Maya looked at the drawing for a long time after that. The word us echoed in her mind. It had been so long since anyone had made her feel like she belonged anywhere. When Daniel returned home, he found the girls laughing together. He stood at the doorway quietly, just watching. It had been years since his home had felt that alive, but deep down he knew this couldn't last forever. Maya would eventually have to leave or he'd have to know the truth about her. That night, as Lily went to bed, Daniel sat alone in the living room again. Maya came out of her room holding a folded photo. I need to show you something, she said quietly. Daniel looked up surprised. What is it? She handed him the photo. His hand froze as he looked at it. It was an old picture of his wife, standing in front of their old car, smiling. The photo had been taken years before he met her. Maya, he said slowly. Where did you get this? Her voice trembled. It was in my grandmother's things. I didn't know what it meant at first, but I had to find out. Daniel looked at her, confused. Find out what? Her eyes filled with tears. Who she really was to me. Daniel stared at her in silence. His heart began to race. Before he could ask more, she whispered, I think she was my mother. The room went completely still. The only sound was the quiet ticking of the wall clock. Daniel didn't know what to say. His mind was spinning, his hands trembling slightly. Maya looked terrified, as if she regretted speaking at all. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to make things hard for you. I just needed to see this place. I'll leave tomorrow. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. When she turned to go back to her room, he finally managed to whisper, Wait. She stopped, her back still facing him. Let's talk in the morning, he said quietly. Maya nodded without turning around. Okay. As she disappeared down the hall, Daniel sat there staring at the photo in his hand. His late wife's face looked back at him, smiling, peaceful. And suddenly, 100 questions filled his mind. Could this really be true? He didn't sleep that night, because deep down he already knew. The girl who had knocked on his door that rainy evening wasn't just a stranger. She was a missing piece of his wife's past, a secret buried long before he ever knew her. And now that secret had found its way home. The next morning, sunlight streamed softly through the kitchen window. Daniel was awake before anyone else, as usual, and brewed coffee while listening to the faint sound of birds outside. The house felt unusually quiet, almost tense, as if everyone was holding their breath. He glanced toward the hallway and noticed the door to the guest room was slightly open. Maya was already awake. She peeked out, her eyes red from crying the night before, but her expression was determined. She stepped into the kitchen quietly and nodded at Daniel. Morning, she said softly. Morning, he replied, trying to keep his voice calm. He motioned for her to sit at the table. Did you sleep all right? She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. A little, she admitted. I kept thinking about everything. Daniel understood. After last night, after seeing that photograph, nothing could be normal. He poured a cup of tea and placed it in front of her. I think we need to talk, he said carefully. Maya swallowed hard and nodded. She wasn't ready to tell everything, but she knew she couldn't keep it inside forever. "Why don't you start from the beginning?" Daniel suggested gently. "Tell me what you remember." She sat down, her hands gripping the mug. I never knew my mother," she said slowly. "I only have bits and pieces from what my grandmother told me. I grew up in foster care after she passed away. I always wondered about her, about who she really was. I found an old diary, letters and photographs, and one day I realized I had to find her house. I had to see where she lived. I didn't mean to intrude or cause trouble. I just wanted to see it for myself." Daniel listened, his chest tightening. There was a pause, then she whispered, "I didn't know you were here. I didn't know anyone from her life was still around." He nodded slowly. "I see. So you came here, hoping to see your mother's house, but not knowing it was my home." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, and then I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I didn't want to leave, but I didn't want to be a burden either." Daniel reached across the table and gently placed a hand on hers. "You're not a burden. You're a person who needed help, and you came to the right place. That's all that matters." She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "You don't hate me?" Daniel shook his head. "No, I don't hate you. I'm just trying to understand." Maya took a deep breath and continued. "My grandmother told me my mother had another child before she met her. Her husband, your wife. I never knew if it was true. But then I found letters, pictures, things that confirmed it. I think I'm that child." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The pieces of the puzzle that had been swirling in his mind suddenly snapped into place. The photograph she had shown him, the way she had recognized the shed and other parts of the house, her knowledge of his wife. It all made sense. He didn't say anything at first. He just sat there letting the words sink in. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to lie about who I am. I didn't know how to tell anyone. I just wanted to know her. To see where she lived, even if she wasn't here anymore." Daniel reached over and touched her hand again. "Maya, it's all right. You don't have to explain any further." "I believe you." She looked at him surprised. You do?" He nodded. "Yes. And I think it's time we figure out what this means for all of us." The day passed slowly. Daniel called a friend who worked at the local police station, not to report anything, but just to confirm that no one was officially missing. The call confirmed what he suspected. There was no record of Maya being missing. That in itself was a relief, but it also added another layer of mystery to her story. While Daniel was on the phone, Maya stayed in the living room with Lily. The two girls drew pictures together, laughed softly, and shared small stories about school and hobbies. Daniel noticed the way Maya interacted with Lily, gentle, patient, protective. Lily, in turn, seemed to accept her instantly, as if she had always known her. Daniel couldn't help but watch them and feel a mix of awe and concern. He had lived alone with Lily for years, and now this girl had appeared out of nowhere, bringing laughter and confusion at the same time. By evening, Daniel decided it was time to show Maya some old family things. "I think it might help if you see some of her things," he said gently. "Maybe it will answer some questions for you." Maya nodded, nervous but willing. They went to the small attic where Daniel kept his late wife's belongings, photographs, letters, and keepsakes stored in old boxes. Maya's eyes widened as she recognized some of the items: a small bracelet, a notebook, a photo of a young woman smiling in the garden. She picked up the bracelet carefully. "I remember seeing this in one of the letters," she whispered. "It belonged to her?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, she wore it all the time. You might find things here that remind you of her." For hours, Maya sifted through the boxes, holding photographs and letters close. Sometimes she cried quietly. Sometimes she smiled, as if reconnecting with a part of her life she had never known. Daniel stayed nearby, quietly watching, offering answers when she asked. At one point, she pulled out an old diary. She flipped through the pages, her hands trembling. "These are her thoughts," she said softly. "It's like I can hear her voice." Daniel nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. "She wanted to be remembered," he said gently. "And now you are remembering her." Maya looked up at him, tears in her eyes. "I didn't think I'd ever get to see this. Any of this." Daniel smiled faintly. "Sometimes life gives us a second chance, even if it comes in unexpected ways." That night, after dinner, they sat in the living room. Lily had gone to bed. exhausted from a day full of laughter and exploration. Daniel and Maya sat quietly, the air filled with the soft ticking of the clock and the occasional creak of the old house settling. "I don't know how to thank you," Maya whispered. "You don't have to," Daniel replied. "Just stay. We'll figure everything out together." She nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel lost. She felt part of something. Over the next few days, Daniel noticed subtle things about Maya. The way she instinctively helped Lily when she stumbled. The way she treated small animals gently. The way she lingered on certain photographs as if trying to memorize every detail. It was becoming clear to him that Maya was not just a stranger. She was someone connected to his past. Someone who had unknowingly walked back into the life of the family she was always meant to know. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Maya asked Daniel a question that made him pause. "Did she ever talk about having another child?" Daniel felt his heart tighten. He shook his head slowly. "No, she never mentioned it. Not to me, at least." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I always wondered why she didn't. I always felt like something was missing." Daniel reached out and placed a hand on hers. Maybe she didn't know how to tell anyone. Or maybe she thought it was better this way, but now you're here and it's okay to be a part of this family. She looked at him, hope and fear mixed in her expression. "You really mean that?" He nodded firmly. "Yes, you're safe here. You don't have to run anymore." That night, after putting Lily to bed, Daniel and Maya talked long into the night. She told him more about her childhood, about foster homes, about the small moments she remembered of her mother. Daniel listened, offering comfort and understanding. By the time she went to sleep, a quiet peace had settled over the house. For the first time, Maya felt like she belonged somewhere. She wasn't just a lost girl anymore. She was someone with roots, someone who had found the place she was always meant to be. Daniel, sitting alone for a moment after she went to bed, reflected on the events of the past few days. He realized that letting her stay that one night had changed everything. It had opened a door to the past, to secrets long hidden, and to a future that was uncertain but full of possibility. He looked at the photograph of his late wife again, feeling a mixture of sorrow and hope. Life had a way of bringing unexpected people into our paths, he thought. Sometimes it was coincidence, sometimes it was fate, but whatever it was, Maya was here now, and he was ready to welcome her into their lives. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, rustling leaves softly. Inside, a quiet understanding passed between two people, one searching for answers, the other ready to give them. The story was far from over, but for now there was a sense of calm, a fragile peace that promised new beginnings. Daniel didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for certain. Maya was no longer a stranger. She was part of his home, part of his life, and part of a secret that was finally starting to make sense. And that knowledge, fragile as it was, made the entire house feel alive again. The next morning, sunlight poured into the kitchen in soft golden beams. Daniel was up early as usual, making breakfast while Lily still slept. He could hear Maya moving around in the guest room. The house was quiet, but there was an unusual weight in the air. It wasn't just the silence. It was anticipation, as if everyone sensed that something important was about to happen. Maya came into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes and looking nervous. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning," Daniel replied. "Did you sleep okay?" "I did," she said, though her voice wavered. She kept tea, eyes downcast. Daniel placed a plate of pancakes on the table and poured her a glass of juice. "You've been quiet this morning. Is everything all right?" Maya hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I think it's time I tell you everything. I don't want to hide anything anymore." Daniel nodded slowly. "All right. Start from the beginning." Maya took a seat, clutching her glass tightly. "I didn't know where else to go," she began. "After my grandmother passed, I found her old diary and some letters. That's when I learned about my mother. She had a daughter before she met her husband. Before she met you, I think. I was that daughter." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had suspected something like this, but hearing it out loud made it real. Maya continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was in foster care for most of my life. I didn't know my mother well. I knew her name, I knew about her life from what my grandmother told me, but I never met her. I never knew if she would have wanted me to know her. She paused, taking a shaky breath. Then I found photographs and letters that belonged to her. I realized she had lived in a house here. I needed to see it, to feel close to her somehow. I didn't know anyone from her life was still here. I didn't know I would find you. Daniel remained silent, letting her speak. His mind was racing, but he didn't want to interrupt. I know I shouldn't have come like this, she said, tears filling her eyes. I didn't mean to intrude, I wanted to know her. Daniel reached across the table, placing a hand on hers. You didn't intrude, he said softly. You came to a place where you were needed. That's all that matters. Maya looked at him, relief washing over her face. You really mean that? He nodded. Yes, you're safe here. And now that I know the truth, we can figure out what to do together. She looked down at her hands. I don't even know where to start. I've been searching for answers my whole life, and now that I have some, it feels overwhelming. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. Start with what you feel. We'll take it one step at a time. For the rest of the morning, they went through old photographs and letters. Maya studied each one carefully, her eyes widening at familiar faces and places. Sometimes she would gasp quietly or whisper a name, recognizing someone or something she had only seen in pictures before. At one point, she picked up a small, worn bracelet. This was hers, she said softly. I saw it in one of the letters. I can't believe I'm holding it now. Daniel nodded. She treasured it. She wore it all the time. Maya held the bracelet tightly, feeling a connection she had never experienced before. For the first time, she felt close to the mother she had never known. Later that afternoon, Daniel decided it was time to have a serious conversation. Maya, he said gently, I need to ask you something. Do you want to stay here? I mean, not just for a night, but for longer. I think Lily would love that, and so would I. Maya's eyes widened, and for a moment she looked shocked. I don't know, she said. I've always been on my own. I don't know what it would mean to stay somewhere permanently. Daniel smiled softly. It doesn't have to be permanent right away. Just give it a chance. See what it feels like to belong somewhere. She looked at Lily, who had come into the room to show them a drawing she had made. Lily's eyes sparkled as she handed the picture to Maya. It's us, she said proudly. You, me, and Dad were a team. Maya looked at the drawing, tears forming in her eyes. For the first time, she felt something she had never felt before. A sense of home, a place where she was wanted and people who cared about her. I think, I'd like that, she said softly. Daniel nodded. Then let's take it one day at a time. Over the next few days, Maya settled into the house. She and Lily grew closer with each passing moment, sharing secrets, stories, and laughter. Daniel watched them, feeling a mix of happiness and worry. It was a lot to process, but he knew this was the right thing. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Maya spoke again. I need to tell you about my grandmother, she said quietly. She knew about my mother's past. She kept everything hidden from me for years, but she always left clues. That's how I found the letters and photographs. Daniel listened carefully, nodding. It makes sense. Sometimes the past is complicated. People do what they think is best. I just wish I had known sooner, Maya said, her voice breaking. I spent so many years feeling lost, like I didn't belong anywhere, and now I feel like I finally do. Daniel reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. You do belong here, and you always will. That night, after Lily went to bed, Daniel and Maya sat in the living room. The house was quiet, but it felt alive in a different way, full of hope, healing, and new beginnings. Maya looked around at the photographs, letters, and keepsakes. I can't believe all of this belonged to her, she whispered. It's like I'm seeing her life for the first time. Daniel nodded. She would have wanted you to see it, to know her, to understand who she was. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I wish I could have met her. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. You can still carry her with you. In everything you do, in every choice you make. She's part of you. Maya smiled through her tears. I will. I promise. Over the next week, Daniel noticed changes in Maya. She laughed more freely, she slept better, and she seemed more at peace. Lily adored having her around, and the house felt warmer, fuller, and alive in a way it hadn't been for years. One afternoon, Daniel received a call from a distant relative of his late wife. I heard about a girl who might be connected to the family, the voice on the phone said. We think she may be your daughter. Daniel felt his heart race. Yes, I think you're right. I'll explain everything when I see you. He hung up and turned to Maya, who was helping Lily with homework. "I think it's time you know," he said gently. "There are people who knew your mother and can confirm your connection to her. Would you like to meet them?" Maya nodded slowly. "I'm ready." That evening they sat together in the living room talking about the upcoming meeting. Maya felt nervous but also hopeful. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running from the past. She was embracing it with people who cared about her. Daniel watched her, feeling a deep sense of relief. The lost girl who had knocked on his door that rainy night was no longer lost. She had found her place, her family, and a sense of belonging she had been searching for all her life. As the night settled over the house, Daniel realized something important. Sometimes, life gives you unexpected challenges not to punish you, but to bring the people who belong together back into each other's lives. And now, with Maya here, his family was finally whole in a way he hadn't thought possible. He looked at her quietly, feeling gratitude for that rainy night when he had opened the door. That one decision had changed everything. For her, for Lily, and for him. The story wasn't over yet. There were still answers to find, truths to uncover, and healing to complete. But for the first time, Daniel felt a sense of hope that he hadn't felt in years. Maya wasn't just a guest anymore. She was family. And for the first time in a long time, the house felt like home. The morning sunlight spilled into the kitchen, making everything glow with a soft warmth. Daniel was up first, as always, preparing breakfast. But today felt different. There was a quiet energy in the house, a mix of anticipation and nervous excitement. Maya had stayed up late the night before, flipping through old letters and photographs, and now she moved around with a kind of thoughtful calm. Lily was the first to wake, rushing down the stairs in her pajamas, hair messy but eyes sparkling. "Good morning," she exclaimed. "Are we having pancakes?" Maya smiled, a genuine soft smile that reached her eyes. "Yes," she said. "I'll help today." Daniel watched the two of them, feeling a warmth in his chest. It wasn't just the aroma of the pancakes or the sunlight. It was the feeling of family, the quiet, unspoken bond that had begun to grow between them. As they cooked together, Lily chattered about school, and Maya laughed at her jokes. Daniel noticed how natural it felt, how easily she had begun to fit into the rhythms of their home. It was almost as if she had always been there, part of their lives. Once breakfast was ready, they sat down together, at the small kitchen table. Daniel poured coffee for himself and tea for Maya. Lily eagerly dug into her pancakes, humming happily. Daniel cleared his throat, feeling the weight of the moment. "Maya," he began carefully, "we need to talk about what comes next. You've found a connection to your mother, but there are still things to understand. People who knew her, family members who might be able to help fill in the missing pieces." Maya looked down at her cup, fingers wrapped around it tightly. "I'm ready," she whispered. I want to know everything. I want to understand who she really was." Daniel nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. "Good. There are people who can help us, and we can do this together." After breakfast, they got ready to leave the house. Daniel drove them through quiet streets, each turn familiar yet different when seen through Maya's eyes. She stared out the window, watching the neighborhoods she had only known from letters and photographs. Each house, each tree, each mailbox seemed to bring a memory to the surface. Not her memory, but her mother's. When they arrived at the small community center where Daniel's relatives had agreed to meet, Maya hesitated at the door. Her hands trembled slightly and she took a deep breath. "It's all right," Daniel said softly. "You're safe. No one's here to judge you. They just want to meet you." She nodded, pushing the door open. Inside, a small group of people were waiting, relatives she had never met but who had known her mother well. Their faces lit up when they saw her, and some tears glistened in their eyes. "Maya," a woman said gently, "we've heard so much about you." Maya's throat tightened. I'm Maya," she said quietly. The relatives stepped forward, embracing her one by one. They spoke softly, sharing stories of her mother's kindness, her laughter, the way she had cared for everyone around her. Maya listened, tears streaming down her face, feeling a connection she had never thought possible. Daniel stood back, watching. He felt a deep sense of relief and gratitude. The girl who had come to his door, lost and scared, was finally beginning to find her place in the world. After the initial introductions, they sat down together. Maya asked questions about her mother, about her childhood and about the letters and photographs she had found. The relatives answered patiently, telling stories she had never heard. Each story added a new layer to her understanding, filling in gaps she had carried for years. At one point, an older woman, Daniel's aunt, handed Maya a small box. "Your mother wanted you to have this," she said softly. Inside were keepsakes, a bracelet, a notebook, and photographs of her mother as a child, teenager, and young adult. Maya held the items carefully, feeling a strange mixture of sorrow and joy. She whispered, "I never thought I'd see these or know her like this." "You always carried a piece of her with you," the woman said kindly. "Now you have the rest of the pieces." After the meeting, Daniel drove them back home. The car was quiet, but the silence was comfortable. Maya held the small box in her lap, looking thoughtful. Once home, she went straight to Lily's room. "Come see what I have," she said softly. Lily's eyes widened with curiosity as Maya opened the box and showed the small keepsakes. "These belong to Mom," she explained. Lily ran her fingers over the bracelet. "She's amazing," she said simply. Maya nodded. She was. "And now I feel like I can know her through these things, and through you both." Daniel watched from the doorway, feeling a lump in his throat. This moment, the bonding, the understanding, the love, was something he had never imagined could happen so naturally. That evening, after dinner, they sat together in the living room. The warmth of the fireplace filled the room, and the three of them, Daniel, Lily, and Maya, were quiet for a while, simply enjoying the feeling of being together. Maya spoke finally, her voice soft. "I never thought I'd have a family like this. I always felt alone, but now I feel like I belong." Daniel smiled, reaching out to squeeze her hand. "You do belong, and you always will." Lily snuggled closer to Maya. "You're my sister now," she said firmly. Maya laughed softly, tears forming in her eyes. "I think I like that," she whispered. Days turned into weeks, and slowly Maya became part of the household routine. She helped with chores, cooked with Daniel, played with Lily, and even started helping at the small garden in the backyard. She laughed more freely, slept more peacefully, and her presence brought a warmth to the house that had been missing for years. One afternoon, while cleaning the attic together, Daniel and Maya found a box of letters and photographs they hadn't seen before. The letters were from her mother, written to family members over the years. Some were joyful, recounting happy memories, while others were filled with worry, hope, and love. Maya read them carefully, sometimes aloud, sharing stories with Daniel and Lily. Each letter felt like a conversation across time, a bridge connecting them to the mother she had never met, but was now part of her life in a tangible way. "That's her," Maya whispered at one point. "Every word, every story. It's like I'm finally meeting her." Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "And she would be proud of you," he said softly. "You're carrying her spirit forward." As the months passed, the bond between them grew stronger. Daniel noticed how naturally Maya had become part of their lives. Not just a guest, but a sister to Lily, a daughter in a way he hadn't expected, and a bridge to a past that had seemed lost. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Maya turned to Daniel. "I never thought I'd find a place like this," she said softly. "A home, a family. I can't thank you enough for letting me in that first night." Daniel smiled gently. "It wasn't just me," he said. "You were ready to belong. You came here open-hearted, and that's why this works. You found your way to us, and we found our way to you." Maya looked at Lily, who was laughing at a joke Daniel had made, and then back at Daniel. "I feel like I finally have a family I can call my own," she whispered. "You do," Daniel said firmly, "and you always will." That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Daniel and Maya sat in the living room quietly. The fire crackled softly, filling the room with warmth. "I've been carrying so many questions my whole life," Maya said softly. "And now, I feel like I finally have some answers. Not all of them, maybe, but enough to move forward." Daniel nodded. "That's all any of us can ask for. Life gives us pieces, and sometimes it takes time to put them together, but now, you have a home and you're part of a family that cares about you." Maya smiled, a smile full of relief and hope. "I never thought I'd feel this way, like I belong somewhere, but now I do, because of you and Lily." Daniel reached out and gently held her hand. "You've brought something into this house too, Maya. Something we didn't know was missing until you came. You've brought joy, warmth, and love. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, rustling leaves softly. Inside, the house was filled with quiet laughter, love, and the sense of belonging that comes from being part of a family. In the weeks that followed, Maya settled fully into her new life. She went back to school, made new friends, and continued to grow close to Lily. Daniel watched her thrive, feeling a deep sense of pride and gratitude. One evening, as they all sat together after dinner, Lily looked at Maya and said, "I'm so glad you're here. I don't know what I'd do without you." Maya hugged her tightly. "I'm glad too," she whispered. "I finally feel like I'm home."